Okay, great. It's 6:30. We are recording, so let's call this meeting November 21st meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors to order. For the record, we have all 5 supervisors here tonight. We also have several staff members with us. We have our executive director. We have Sophia, our wonderful administrative person here. We've got Ben Cushman from Deschutes Law. And it looks like we have a couple other people with us here. Molly Page from the Department of Ecology and Jean Fike from the State Conservation Commission. So welcome to everyone. And with that, let's take a look at our agenda here. Is there any changes to the agenda here? Or if not, I need a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I suggest we add a little bit of time to talk about the resolution. Sarah, you want to add to that?
Yeah, item 6, governance. We added the WACD annual meeting resolution, but it's still at 10 minutes, which includes the budget conversation.
Yeah, we'll need more than that. Let's move
Yeah.
that to 20 minutes and back everything out from there if we could.
Okay.
And with that change, I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as modified.
Okay, moved by Doug. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Boy, that was a definite tie there. I'm going to give it to David.
I'll wrestle David for it.
You can have it, Betsy.
We'll get you next time, Betsy. Okay, so moved and seconded to approve our agenda as amended. We'll do a roll call vote on that. Doug,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. So we have an agenda. If we could go back up so I can see what's the next item. There we go. We have consent agenda tonight. The only thing on consent tonight is our work session minutes, work session and meeting minutes from October. We don't have financials as Jan sent to us because of our meeting happening earlier in the month this time. We won't see the monthly financial report until the December meeting. So just the one item on consent tonight. Is there a motion on consent?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Moved by Betsy. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Helen seconds. We will vote on the consent agenda. Betsy,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Doug,
Abstain, I was not there.
and I will also abstain because I was not there. So the consent agenda passes 3 affirmative and 2 abstentions. Next up here is public comment. This is the point at which any member of the public can address us for up to 3 minutes on a topic that's on their mind that might be relevant to the district. I don't believe we have any member from the public here tonight, but I will stop at this point and ask, is there anyone that wishes to make public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay, we will close public comment. And we will move on to our partner reports. First up here is NRCS. We don't have a NRCS rep here. Sarah, do you have anything to report on their behalf?
No updates at this time.
Okay, then we will move on to the Department of Ecology. The agenda says Travis Casey, but I believe we have Molly Page here to make that report tonight. So welcome, Molly. The floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Molly Page, kind of filling in for Travis tonight. Department of Ecology doesn't have any new items. We're still in the process of hiring a supervisor for the non-point pollution unit. And we are still conducting watershed evaluations, so we will likely have more things to talk about next meeting. So happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, well, thank you for checking in with us here. You're certainly welcome to stay, and you're also welcome to leave if you have other priorities. That moves us on to the next report, which is the Washington State Conservation Commission. And we have Jean with us tonight. Hello, Jean.
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? Hey, so I don't have a ton to report. We're a little bit in limbo in a couple ways. We're all getting ready for the WACD meeting, of course, and the November commission meeting, both in Wenatchee here coming up very soon. So lots of prep work for that. And of course, we're awaiting the announcement of our new executive director. The expectation is that that name will be announced along with a start date during the November commission meeting. So, a number of important decisions that need to be made at some point after that, when this person gets their feet under them, will allow us to move forward on some things. We're continuing to learn more about the requirements that attach to some of the new funding sources that we got in the current biennium, and we're working through where it's explicit in the proviso language, making good progress on that, and then working with sister agencies to make a road by walking it on some of the places where it's not quite as clear. So it feels like there's a lot happening, but I haven't got a lot concrete to report to you. I'm happy to take any questions, though.
I have one question. Because Ron Schultz is no longer with us, how is the commission going to be handling the legislative session this year?
Yeah, great question. So Allison Halpern has been filling in as an interim policy director. Of course, we greatly miss all of the relationships and institutional knowledge that Ron brought to that process that we don't have anymore. So we're looking forward to partnering with WACD and working with districts. And Allison, I know, has been making great strides in building relationships with legislators, and we're gonna do the best we can. I have a lot of faith in her, and I know lots of districts have wonderful relationships with legislators, and of course, Bryn and Ryan are terrific partners. So I'm optimistic, but Ron will be missed for sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, he will be. And it's good to know that we're gonna keep doing what we need to do on the legislative front. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Okay, thanks for being here. Anything else for Jean? No? Okay, then let's move on to the WACD and NACD reports from Doug.
Hey, have a little to add to what I submitted on paper. So this is in addition to what I submitted. We had a board meeting last night for the WACD board, and some of the high points were there's 2 officer vacancies that are up for election at the WACD annual meeting, the secretary position and also the national director position. Both the incumbents have said that they are going to run again. The WACD board set its meeting schedule for 2024. That's on the website. I haven't pretended to memorize that yet. WACD Legislative Day will be January 25th. And WACD is getting a new phone system, so there's going to be a whole bunch of new phone numbers, but the old ones will be working for a while. But I think Tom sent out in the 5 report, whatever
5
that's
things
called.
to know.
Yeah, 5 things to know. Thanks, Sarah. The 5 things to know newsletter they sent out. They're in there. So that's basically it for WACD. Any questions there? Okay, I will point out that each WACD meeting has an area of focus, and last night it was the Southwest region. And Sarah did a great impromptu job of talking about the Thurston CD and what we've been doing here. So we can all be proud of her representation. Thank you, Sarah. Moving on to NACD. The meeting's still scheduled for San Diego on February 10th to the 14th. There is going to be a banquet on the USS Midway, which I've never been on an aircraft carrier before, so that'll be interesting. The NACD fly-in is scheduled for March 20th. And at the NACD meeting in February, that's where we look at policies, and we're trying to pare down the policy book, which was like 150 pages when I started this. And we're gradually paring it down. There were 337 policies set to sunset this year. And one of my jobs is to review those and say whether they should keep going or not. I took it very seriously the first time I did it and I got in trouble for actually taking them, following the directions. So I took a broader brush approach and challenged the preamble, which covers the whole broad spectrum of what CDs do. And that seemed more efficient to me than going through 333 policies and saying why this should be retained. And next item on NACD, they have 20 first-timer scholarships for the NACD annual meetings. And I submitted Dave Bleet's name from Kitsap, and it was accepted, I found out yesterday. So I wanted to get the oar in the water quickly, because with only 20 slots, I thought it was incumbent to be back fairly quick. On November 17th, President Biden signed the continuing resolution, and unlike previous continuing resolution, this bill funds a portion of the federal government, including agriculture, until January 19th, with the remaining agencies until February 2nd. Sounds like a good way to confuse people to me. Anyway, Congress would still have to pass an appropriations bill to go along with that. And they're still working on the farm bill, kind of in the shade there. And then last item, December 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern time, there's going to be what they call conservation coffee sessions. There's going to be a guy named Matt Miller, whom I've never met. He's the Leadership Development Program Manager of the Pennsylvania Association. He's going to discuss what they're doing on strategic planning. That might be of interest. It will be recorded, and you can register by going to the NACD website. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Doug. That concludes reports. We'll now move into governance then. The first thing here is taking a look at our 2024 proposed budget. Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna pull up the 2024 consolidated budget on your screen. Just, it's nice to have a visual when we're having this conversation. I'm gonna kind of go over some differences between at a high level last year and this year, and some opportunities to celebrate some success. We really unpacked the unrestricted 2024 budget at the October board meeting, and had a lot of really good discussion about particular line items in that unrestricted budget. So my intent will be to share some of this general information, and then if the board has any particular questions or feedback or points of discussion, focus on those. As you can see below, we have a balanced budget. That's the first opportunity to celebrate some successes. This was a really hard year to crunch this budget. As we're moving into 2024, we covered a few of the reasons that this is challenging as we're growing, but our office relocation and our rent that is over double what we're paying in our current space was one of the hardest factors to articulate in this budget. So I'm going to share a little bit more information with you guys now. You can see that our budget overall is about $6.5 million. That's a 53% increase from last year, which is substantial. We went from 4.2 to 5 million dollars. And that's due to a 69% increase in grant funding. We went from right around 3 million to over $5 million in grant funds. I have to really commend our staff team and their grant writing and project development skills and abilities. This is an all hands on deck effort to write grants and develop projects and provide funding proposals. And we would not be able to be able to put this much conservation work on the ground without all hands on deck, generating these projects and these funding proposals to move us forward. The administrative expense to total budget ratio, which means the amount that we have in our administrative kind of operating expenses versus our entire budget, went down, which is a good thing. It went down from 14% to 10%, which is of course due to the big increase in the restricted funding and the grant funding that I just mentioned. A really good nonprofit administrative to expense ratio target is usually less than 18%. So a 10% ratio shows that we are a lean machine, that we are getting any and all possible dollars we can back onto the ground in our community through technical assistance, conservation project implementation, education and outreach, all of the above.
That's a good point to make when we go for rates and charges.
Oh, you can bet. These statistics are already working their way in the slideshow. Yep, very good point. Our unrestricted income did increase a little bit, which is a helpful thing to be able to afford like our new office lease. We also have a growing administrative team or an administrative team that has grown this year to help funnel all of these contracts and needs of all of our administrative functions now that we realize is a bigger and more sophisticated district. It's grown by 6%. That's due to an increase in our overhead income. So that's been really helpful. One of the things, of course, that we get with all of our grant or most of our grant funding is a percentage of that goes towards overhead in our unrestricted budget, which can help with the administration of those contracts and help to pay for things like rent, and utilities and administrative staff to support all the great work that our teams do. Our administrative expenses increase naturally, like I just mentioned. That's due to, like I mentioned, the administrative and finance staff. We added some FTEs this year to our admin team to help support our growing district. The office rent that increased by over 100%, from $50,000 to $101,000. It's a lot of increase. But our new proposed office relocation space will offer a lot more functionality for our organization. Plus, our lease is sunsetting in this new space. Also, with a growing staff team across the board, our costs for things like professional development increase too. We want to have the best trained staff out there to assist anybody and everybody with all of the things that we need to do. And as we take on larger and more complex and sophisticated conservation projects, we want to make sure that we have the certifications and the credentials to manage these more sophisticated projects. And so professional development is something that is always split between our grant funds and our unrestricted expenses. We also are really excited because we have added a new program allocation, and I'll scroll up on my screen one moment so you can see that. In our program allocation section, under our climate adaptation and other strategic priorities section, we've added a new line item that you don't see readily in this screen, but about investing in future conservation. And this line item is some dedicated funding to continue to support our funding development initiatives, our project proposals, our grant writing abilities, our strategic partnerships where we're negotiating new funding and innovative funding opportunities. We have seen a lot of partnership building in this last year, and those things take some time. And so it's great to add that component to this. Two things that I do want to make note of in this budget as well is annually we have been adding to our reserve funds. We've been adding an allocation every year to 2 reserve funds that we have. Let's see. Yeah, I don't have the details on this budget, but I can pull those up. We have a conservation and education center reserve fund where we have been incrementally over time saving for our conservation and education center project. We also have a general reserve fund that has helped us in the past manage things like unforeseen expenses, as well as manage cash flow. We have over the last few years really built a very sophisticated cash flow management strategy. If you'll notice this year, we did not approach the board and share that we were going to need to use the reserve fund to help manage project expenses before our rates and charges, our November rates and charges installment came in. And that I'm very proud of. That's a huge mark of success because we've really been diligently planning and preparing for these higher and more volatile cash flow cycles with both construction windows and our rates and charges cycles. So we're able to absorb that.
Could
But
you convey appreciation to Susan and the administrative team for that, please?
absolutely, I will convey lots of appreciation for the very diligent fiscal management of this and planning and strategy. But that's something to note in this current budget, that it is balanced as it is presented, but there are no contributions going to either of those reserve accounts for this fiscal year. And that is again, due to things like the increased rent that we are absorbing overnight. The second thing is we have a scheduled audit coming in 2024. And so those are budgeted expenses that we're going to see in our 2024 expenses. But that's a one-time thing. So as we look to the future to 2025 and beyond, we are realizing some of those episodic pieces, like the audit that we won't see annually. So this isn't necessarily an increase we'll see every year. Let's see. The other thing to note is that also in an effort to help support balancing this budget, we have slightly reduced by 6% some of our program allocations that you see here. These program allocations, one of the downsides to that slight decrease is that some of those program allocations provide some cushion as we are working from one grant funding source to another, as we're waiting for contracts to come in, things like that. As we see requests for technical assistance that fall outside of our grant funded priorities, these program allocations help us cover and fill all of the gaps that we have in all of those service areas. The slight reduction provides slightly less flexibility for the future. We are anticipating several new grants to come in that are not included in this 2024 proposed budget because we do not have complete reasonable assurance that they're going to land in 2024. And so one of the things that staff are proposing is this is the budget, the final staff version of the budget as presented. But we're proposing having continued conversation in 2024 with the board about this and bringing back new information as new funding sources are received. As these funding sources are received, we're able to charge more overhead, things like that. We may be able to reinvest where needed in our mid-year review in program allocations. And so we'll continue to have conversation with the board about that.
So will we have to do a budget amendments between now and the mid-year review?
Staff are going to be monitoring that. And if we see a major influx of funding, we'll present the board a more realistic picture of the budget. If it's anything that's non-standard, otherwise our typical mechanism is the mid-year budget review where we say, hey, we've gotten in all of these additional grants and here's really what the picture of the budget is looking like now. So I think it's possible we'll get a big influx in the first quarter of the year, and if that happens, we're gonna plan to present that early, just to make sure that the board is tracking the funding coming through.
Thank you.
That's all I have for a very high level overview of where we're at this point. Are there any particular questions or areas of interest that the board would like to discuss?
I have one question, just I guess for perspective, because you pointed out, Sarah, that the budget has grown a lot over the last year, and it's certainly grown a lot since I've been on the board for, well, I don't know, 5 years or whatever it's been. So we're now at $6.4 million a year. And my question, I guess, to you and probably to you too, Gene, is where does that fit like statewide? We're at 6.4 million. Are we average? Are we above average, or sort of like what are other districts' budgets?
Yeah. Jean, do you want to take a first stab at that?
I mean, you're on the high end, you're not at the highest.
We're not King County. I realize that, but
It's yeah, and Snohomish actually has a huge budget, larger. The staff is larger than King. Is the budget larger too now? Anyway, I think so. So you're definitely one of the bigger dogs in the I don't know where the dogs are playing in the play yard, but I couldn't tell you exactly where you lie, but it's well above average in terms of what your budget is. Sarah, do you know more specifically?
Yeah, I think our budget is in kind of the upper quarter of districts, although I don't think we're in the top 5 in terms of budget. We definitely do see a lot of funding going into conservation projects. So a lot of this is funding on the ground, and that's where you're seeing a lot of the big increase in the budget is that's direct on the ground implementation dollars for much larger sophisticated conservation projects than we've historically done. That's where a lot of that funding is going. We are of similar size in terms of staff to Spokane, but have, a little over half of their budget. We have half the staff of Snohomish, just to give you guys some comparisons. So yeah.
And I think Pierce is one of the top 5 too, but I think you hit them all.
Yeah, I would imagine King, Pierce, Snohomish, Spokane are all ahead of us. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That gives perspective.
I think a lot of it has to do with Jean's oversight of our district and the great work she's done. That ought to be worth some additional funding, I think.
David, you have a hand up there. You can go next.
Thanks, TJ. Yeah, I just want to say, it is great. I know we're doing a lot of good work here. I do have concern though when we're not putting into our reserve fund or our CEC budgets again. Definitely something we need to keep an eye on going forward. I know there's a lot going on this year with the move, and that's going to be a great thing. But I guess ultimately we need to start seeing that build back up as well, and maybe that's something for our rates and charges discussion with the county as well. So
yeah, that's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else on the budget here? We will go ahead, Betsy. Yeah.
I'm just curious, Sarah, how much of the grant intake we get is, not sure how to phrase this, is based on our skills at getting grants versus the grant money being available? Like, do we see a uptick and downtick as grants maybe don't have as much to offer?
Yes. Yes, we have seen a huge increase in the amount of funding and the availability of funding for the projects that we're doing, particularly around things like climate smart practices and salmon recovery and riparian conservation projects. So yes, there is a lot more investment both at the state and national level in grant funding sources that we have the opportunity to participate in. I will say though, we do have an increased, especially from our historic capabilities, and increased sophistication in writing these bigger and more complex project proposals and grant applications. So it's a bit in tandem, but I would say in the last year or two, we've seen a huge uptick in the availability and the volume of funding that's available to us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so with that, we will wrap up on this one, knowing that we will come back on December 12th at our next board meeting and we will approve the budget for 2024. So we still have some time to get questions answered if you have them. Any other thoughts, but we will be looking to approve this at our next board meeting. Okay, then let's see, where are we here? Yes, taking a look at what comes up on December 12th. Look at that. What a segue. We have a draft topic list and agenda here to take a look at.
Yeah.
Oh, December 12th.
You push new share.
You'd be able to choose it.
And you're gonna have to full screen with the square on that one, because, oh, they can see it. Never mind.
Okay. So there's the work session topic list. I suggested to Sarah that the staff presentation next month is about our growers conference, which is coming up here in January. I know a little bit about that because I've been involved on a little bit with the planning, but the rest of the board needs to be brought up to speed on that. So that will be the staff presentation next month. Of course, we will have a new office, we'll be in the midst of a new office thing by January too. So any other additions here people want to add to either the work session list or the board meeting for the next time? Doug?
Yeah, I suggest for the WACD update that be a download on the WACD annual meeting and all of us participate.
Okay, let's put that on our work session, if that's okay,
Sure.
as opposed to the board meeting. Okay, so we'll add that in. WACD conference recap. Okay. Anything else on either the work session or the board meeting that folks want to add at this point? Okay, we will go with this. Are those executive sessions, is the acquisition of the real estate gonna be necessary at the December meeting, number 8?
No, that was a placeholder that I
Yeah.
think we can do.
So let's pull that one off, but we will certainly have the other executive session on the executive director performance.
I think we should also make sure that the 2024 budget approval is listed as an action item.
Yes. All right, so we're deleting that one. Deleting number 8. And then on number 7, let's note that that's an action item. Okay.
That's old.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, we will go with that as our draft for next month.
Is that enough time, do you think, for the budget approval?
I would think so. I mean, we've kind of worked through everything at this point.
Okay,
Okay, so with that then, jumping back to tonight's meeting, I think the last item we had under governance here was to talk about the WACD resolutions. And what I thought we would do here, there are a lot of them. It seems to me that there are more than there were last year, but there are a lot of them. And rather than trying to go through all of them, what I was hoping we could do is just kind of, assuming we've all looked at them, we got the link to that. If there's any that people feel particularly strongly about one way or the other, or ones that we have questions on, so that we could potentially provide some direction to Doug, who will be the only person there in person in Wenatchee next week. So maybe Doug, if you want to say anything up front, and then I'll open it up to say, do people have any concerns or questions about any of the resolutions?
No, I think that works. I'm disappointed that more of y'all aren't going, but I understand life goes on in other ways. And I think if you think of something after this meeting, send me a text with a CC to Sarah and TJ.
Okay. So do folks have any particular issues or questions on any of the resolutions? I have one concern that I'll raise then, and it has to do with resolution 2023-08. And the title of the resolution is something about removing the Snake River dams. But then the wording of the resolution is essentially, let's do a study and let's look at the pros and cons. But it seems to me that it's a little misleading and maybe presumptive to title the resolution removing the dams, if we're actually interested in looking at the costs and the benefits of the dams. And I don't know if, and I asked Sarah, she didn't have any further background on that one. I don't know if you do, Doug.
Who is the sponsor?
Franklin, I believe. And I mean, I think it's been a longstanding position of a lot of folks in Eastern Washington that they're not interested in removing the dams, and that's fine. But if it's a study, the study should be a fair study, and it shouldn't be a resolution designed to achieve an outcome of removal. So I feel, I guess, pretty strongly about that one, that if it's going to pass, they should at least retitle it. But if the intention is to come forward with a study that justifies not removing or removing, I mean, it needs to be an honest process, I guess, is where I'm coming from. And I'm not sure, looking at it, that that's the way it's written.
Hey, I can certainly bring that up. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think be ready for a whole lot of pushback on that. The Southeast Washington guys really don't like the removal of the dams.
Yeah, and that's fine, but if we're gonna do a study, let's do a fair study, not write a study to justify a predetermined outcome.
Yep.
That was the only question I had. Most of the others are either good ideas or seem kind of innocuous to me.
There was one
Anyone
that
else? Go
that I
ahead.
personally had problems with as a former land manager for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and that was the state agencies be barred from buying any more land without having a management plan. In my sense, working for that particular agency was, let's manage what we've got well before we try to get more. And I think it precludes opportunities for state agencies to buy land that might be really beneficial for endangered species or for fish protection or other natural resources reasons.
Yeah.
And that was from Pacific, I think, or Grays Harbor. I can't remember which. Mike Norton.
Okay, well, if there's nothing further on that, we throw our trust to Doug to make good arguments and vote the right way when he's there in Wenatchee next week.
You're at my mercy.
Yeah.
And
But
I
we'll hold you accountable during that recap session on December 12th, Doug. Okay, let's move to item 7 then. This is an action item on the resolution on our 2024 election. We've looked at that in the past, and kind of talked about that. So tonight we're up for action here. So we would need a motion on this resolution. Anyone want to make a motion on this resolution?
This is
I mean-
Doug. Go ahead, David.
You'll go for it, Doug. I'll second you.
Okay. I move that we adopt resolution 2023-06, scheduling the 2024 Thurston Conservation District election.
Okay, moved by Doug, and it sounds like seconded by
Second by Dave.
David. Okay, any further discussion on this one before we vote? All right, then we will vote. Doug,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. So we have passed that resolution for next spring's election unanimously. Get back to our agenda here. All right. So that takes us to an executive session. This executive session is to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate. And this is an allowable executive session under RCW 42.30.110, 1B. We will spend no more than 15 minutes in this executive session. We will not take action. We will discuss the issue. We will come out of that executive session with the report out and potentially take action in public session after our executive session. So it's 7:11 now. So let's say we will be back here by about 7:26 or so. Following the first of our two executive sessions. And the executive session participants will be all the board members, our executive director, and legal counsel, Mr. Cushman. So if we can get a breakout, there we go. Let's join a breakout room.
TJ, you're on mute.
Got it. We just completed an executive session on real estate issues, and we're now on item 9 here, where we're prepared to take action coming out of that executive session. So we have proposed a lease agreement here for 582 Tilly Court Southeast in Tumwater. And if we have, I will need a motion on this item.
I nominate David to make the motion.
A motion to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'll motion that we move forward with the lease agreement for the Tilly Road property.
Okay, it's been moved by David. Is there a second? Betsy, I saw your lips move, but you're on mute. So I'm going to give you that second because I read your lips.
You're good.
Okay, moved and seconded. So we'll take a vote on the lease agreement now. David,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Doug,
Aye,
and chair votes aye. So we have approved a new lease agreement for a new home. Very exciting.
thank you, Sarah, Ben, and David.
Yes, good work all around. That brings us then to our second executive session of this evening. This executive session is to discuss the performance of our executive director, an annual discussion we have here, permitted under RCW 423110 G. We will be in this executive session for no more than 15 minutes, taking no action in the executive session. And then we will come back and report out and adjourn our meeting. In this executive session, the only participants will be members of the board. So there will be the 5 of us in this session, and then we will come back. Let's see what time it is here. It's 7:25. We'll be back no later than 7:40 to report out. So let's join the breakout room here, board members. Okay, we have just completed an executive session on the reviewing the performance of the executive director. There were no actions taken in that executive session, but the board did provide me with some direction on to how to continue that performance review process. And with that, we have come to the end of our agenda here this evening. And so I will need a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Moved by David. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, there's three of you there. Let's see. I think I heard Helen first there, so we'll give the second to Helen this time. And we'll now take a vote on adjournment. David,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
Doug,
I.
and chair votes aye. So we are now adjourned. Thank you all for a productive meeting. Hope you all have a nice time enjoying good food with your family and friends this week. And we'll see you on December 12th for the next one.
Happy
Right.
holiday.
Bye.
Holiday.
For a well-run meeting.